Ready to go?
We should be live.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Welcome, everyone. We'll call this MCL board meeting to order Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Call to order. And that's what we just done. So Teresa, will you take the roll call, please?
Trustee Virgo. Trustee Cook. Trustee Gray. Here. Trustee Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Lazio.
Here.
Trustee Lemunion. Present. Trustee Pandolfi. Here. Trustee Stepp. Trustee Weezy.
Here.
Trustee Wilson. Trustee Wyckoff. Trustee Virgo. Here.
So if you'd like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I've got a short invocation to read tonight. It happens to be out of the book of Philippians, and just something ourselves to be mindful of. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, valuing others above ourselves, not looking to our own interests, but to each of you to the interests of others." And so I think this is really important to me personally in this day and hour which we live in. It's important to all of us to value others more important than ourselves and serve, had an attitude in our heart of serving one another, laying our lives down. And I see that at work every day in MCPL, honestly. But I just want to encourage our hearts in the world in which we live in. This is not the way things roll out most of the time. Okay, and so I'm reminding myself first and foremost that this is the way my life should operate day in and day out. And so I just want to encourage all of us. Let's do that. Let's be a model of that as we navigate through everyday life and all of our endeavors that we have here at MCPL and out in the public. Okay. So if you want to join me in prayer, I'll lead us in a short prayer. Father in heaven, we just thank you for this. Lord, will you teach us, continue to teach us? We would have teachable hearts in this hour, teachable lives, that we could walk out this humility and be able to prefer people above and beyond ourselves and actually lay our lives down for one another. And we thank you for that in the name of the Lord. Amen. Amen. Seated. So we'll look forward to the approval of the agenda. And do I have a motion?
Approval of the agenda as printed.
I'll second.
All right, and the approval of the agenda has been seconded and approved, and so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, take a roll call. It's not my regular job.
Yeah. Trustee Gray.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Lazio.
Aye.
Trustee Lemunion. Aye. Trustee Pandolfi. Aye. Trustee Davis. Trustee Weezy.
Yes.
Trustee Wilson. Cody, is anyone else on the line besides Trustee Weezy?
No, Teresa, it's just Trustee Weesey.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
All right, motion carries, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. So the approval of the consent agenda. Have a motion.
I move the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
So Teresa, I guess we need to call the roll for that as well.
Okay, Trustee Virgo. Yes. Trustee Cook. Sorry. Trustee Gray.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Fazio.
Yes.
Trustee Lemonian.
Yes.
Trustee Pandolfi. Aye. Trustee Step. Sorry. Absent. Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Easy. Motion
yes,
carried. Thank you. Sorry about that. Trustee.
Okay, motion carries. Move on to the approval of the minutes of July 16th, 2024.
So those are all included in the consent agenda.
Good. Okay,
So those are all included. This,
all right. So report of expenses, we're good on that too.
yes.
Okay. So the library director and CEO's report.
All right. Thank you, trustee Lazio. My report today will consist of three things. We'll acknowledge staff, their contributions to the library. We have a guest speaker, two guest speakers. We have Tammy Lay from our Farview Pantry, and we have representatives from BNIM, firm that's working with us in our feasibility study of our headquarters building. But first, let's do the most important thing here and acknowledge our staff. The amount of time they've spent and sweat they've given to the library. First is Jacqueline Reed, who's Associate Director of Public Services. I've worked with Jacqueline closely, and she's in charge of our mission enhancements. Brilliant mind, and she served us very well. Jacqueline says she used to read. Well, what we do is when we acknowledge these people, we give them this questionnaire, and they give these wonderful responses. And I highlighted this one that paints a very wonderful picture. So she was asked, what's her favorite early memory of the library? She says she used to read at one of the elementary schools, but she can still remember the smell of the fall leaves as she drove over the bridge to get there. The kids loved having me come over and read to them. And I thought that painted a wonderful picture. Richie, Jacqueline's manager, says Jacqueline is more than just a long-standing employee. She's the cornerstone of our department. A resident go-to person for all spreadsheet needs, unwavering dedication, an exceptional work ethic, genuine passion for customer service makes a lasting impact on everyone she's managed. So thank you, Jacqueline, for 25 years of service. Next is Trini Osborne, who's given us 30 years of service. She's a half-time customer service associate at Withers branch. When asked about the accomplishment she's most proud of during her time at the library, she said she's proud of her book club, which she's been running for 15 years. She still has some originals and enjoys watching them become friends outside of the library. By originals, she means people who were there in the very beginning. She had a craft group that was another joyful time because, again, she saw people from her community meeting, learning new things and building friendships. So she's the definition of sunshine, as you can all see. Trini makes everyone, both her coworkers and customers, feel welcome, seen in every interaction. That's really what we're looking for in a customer service associate. She's one of those people that makes you feel better when you know she's also going to be at work. So lucky to have gotten to work alongside her for these past 5 years and be around her warmth and knowledge. And that's the words of Carrie Drury, the branch manager at Withers. So Trini, thank you for all of your work. The last person we're acknowledging is Todd Hembry, who's been with us for 40 years. Todd, I've had the pleasure of meeting on a number of locations because he serves in my local branch in Raytown. Todd is an amazing person, and every response to his questions is truly fascinating, but I will read one of them. Todd, are you okay with me reading your response to the first one? Because it's hilarious.
The first question.
What was the most memorable encounter you've ever had with a customer? Can I read that one?
Sure.
Yeah, so he says there have been many, but one of the funniest ones stands out. It's when a patron didn't like the answer I gave her. She was happy with my coworker's answer. She thanked them and then turned to me and pointed and said, "And you should not be working with the public." Look, I've seen him in action. Todd lives in the neighborhood. He's been a resident of Raytown for as long as you've been working here, right? And he's deeply loved by the community and his staff. So Todd's manager, Alexandra, who's also wonderful, says Todd's an institution in Raytown, specifically at the Raytown branch. His loyalty to Raytown and his contributions are instrumental to staff and the community. His passion as the Raytown Assistant Branch Manager and dedication to customer service is an example to everyone on the team and in the MCPL system. Todd gives us his best every day and inspires us all to do the same. Todd, thank you. And for 40 years, we're going to give you this wonderful piece here. So you can come up and trophy, yes.
Yeah.
Todd is a,
You get a trophy, you get a hospice.
Trustee Johnson has stated publicly on a number of locations that he wants the library to be a place that really retains employees. And one of Todd's responses to his questions is just says it was just a wonderful place to have a career, a lifelong career. So he's very grateful to all that he's done. All right, so next. I invited a special guest here who's gonna tell us a little bit about the work we do at the farm branch. So I want to give a little anecdote before we start. When I interviewed for the job, I had to spend a day driving around to all these branches, and I was stuck in a car with two lovely employees, Jennifer Ridley and Richie Bowman. Actually, when I say stuck, I say that jokingly. It's two great people to be on a road trip with because they carry the conversation. It's never an awkward silence. But we stopped at Farview. We go into Farview and it's Tammy and an army of volunteers, and this place is just buzzing with energy. And as she will tell you, the pantry serves people by giving out donated goods that supports the community's need and independence. And that experience stuck with me and really was one of the main reasons why I came to a system like this, because it's such a dynamic place and it shows our commitment to our community and demonstrates an impact in that area of need. So, Tammy, I'm just gonna turn it over to you. Sorry.
Here.
Yeah, Mona?
It's gonna feel funny and like
Well, you can stand here. You're the boss.
Well, no, this is where you have it, so this is where I.
right.
Good evening to everyone. This is a little intimidating. I had in my mind, I almost wore my raggedy jeans because I thought it might be like 4 people at the table and I'm sitting and we're talking. This is very impressive to me. I want to say thank you, first and foremost, for what you have made happen or made possible to happen at the Farview branch with our food pantry. I think you're going to be very impressed with what your generosity and your forward thinking and whatever part you played in making it happen has come to fruition. The pantry, we opened 5 years ago, I believe, and then it was a conversation, if I remember correctly, between library, Mid-Continent Library, 4 to 6, since they own the building, and Community Services League. And so it was decided that we would get to have a portion of that building along with the library and then try to meet the needs to give food to people in the community. We started out being open 4 hours on a Wednesday, every Wednesday, and we saw a total of 25 to 30 people in those 4 hours. It took a while for word to get out and for people to trust to come. Bring it forward to today, and we are seeing around 100 to 120 people on a Wednesday, and we've shortened it from 4 hours to 3. So we have a well-oiled machine where we can sign them in and run them through, but still validating who they are. I'm going to give you a little bit of the statistics first. Just in any given month, We serve a total of 472 families a couple of months ago. Those families consist of 1,687 people under the roofs of those households. 574 of them are children, 193 of them are senior citizens, the rest are adults between those ages. That was just 1 month, but that's an average of what we look at. We believe, we've not tallied it officially, but we believe at this current time, probably 50%, 40 to 50% of that number are non-English speaking people or people, Hispanic people who are learning English but still struggle. So we now have 2 translators or interpreters who volunteer with us as well. One within the pantry, so we can make sure we know what needs are needing to be met, and one out front to help with the signing in. So that's the statistics to give you the numbers, but here's what really happens within the pantry. It has become, the library and the pantry in partnership has become a community. And I thank you again for the people you have hired to work at Farview as your staff, because they support us and we support them, and we work hand in hand every Wednesday. Reading Rocket comes, sets up, has games for kids to play with parents who are waiting to get their food. Everybody in the household that comes to get food receives a book each time, and they can come twice a month. So do that math. Families are building libraries in their homes, families that wouldn't have them otherwise. And from babies to, well, you know the Reading Rocket, you know what it's staffed with, books for every age. In the pantry, we have grown into an entity that we can supply not only commodities food to the people who come to us for help, and not only help them build small libraries, but we provide toiletry items. We provide period packs and voice pads, both for our seniors who need them and for women of any age who need support every month. We provide diapers for families with children all the way up to toddler size, and they get a package of wipes to go with it. And if you're coming twice a month, then you're getting a good amount of diapers and wipes for your children. You're getting a good amount of food supply for your family as well, because we're in partnership with harvesters and we receive commodities twice a month, about 6,000 to 10,000 pounds each food drop. And so we're able to give them a bulk of food. We also provide pet food. We provide birthday cake kits. How many of you know what a birthday cake kit is? Good, some people do. It's the aluminum pan, and it's got a cake mix in it, and it's got a box or a container of ready-made frosting, a box of candles, and then a can of pop. Because in these mixes, you don't use the regular ingredients, you just pour a can of pop in the cake mix. Parents can put it and bake it, they've got the frosting, it's got the pan, it's got the candles, and sometimes we even have a birthday card put in. So I call them my administrative staff at the front table, who are 4 women who do all the paperwork, because I despise paperwork. I'm a retired elementary teacher, and I spent a few years of that in administration. I don't like paper. So they do that part, and they track who has birthdays so they can let me know and we can get the birthday cakes. We've had people cry when they received that cake because there was no way they were going to have one for their child that week. We provide all these extra things because we've worked really hard at networking, and we have a lot of donors, individual humans, groups of people. One of our biggest supporters in donating is the Port Osage School District. The Honor Society at the high school will have food raisers and cash money raisers for us. The elementary schools will have food run some food collections and stuff, and everybody brings them to that pantry. Sometimes they share with Buckner side too, since a lot of families, are comprised there of Osage. And we also have the retirees group from Mid-Continent Library. I don't know if you're aware that you have a retirees group of some women who they call themselves a fun name and I can't think of it right now. But like every other month, they will bring a big donation of food for us. My congregation, Village Heights, we supply the staff and we supply the labor and we supply the work. And then ICANN is an organization, you're familiar with ICANN in Independence. And so they come and deliver pastries and breads for us. And Salvation Army, we have a volunteer who will go there every Friday to get breads and pastries. We have a total of 35 volunteers who work every week to make this pantry happen. And the majority of them come from my congregation, except for two. Two of the volunteers, I may get weepy on this, forgive me if I do. Two of the volunteers who now work with us originally were people coming in from the neighborhood to receive food because they're food insecure. One is a young mom who has a son whose father left and she struggles. English is her second language. She lives in Hawthorne Apartments. Another gentleman lives down the street. He is retired, not enough money to live on. Both were coming to get food and both at different times saw a need. The gentleman said, I notice that you need help taking the carts out and getting the food to the cars. If you ever need me, I am here. We asked him to help one day. He interacted beautifully with everyone. Fast forward, he works every Wednesday, and every Wednesday he gets to take a box of food home. The lady that's working with us, the young mom, she saw a need at the front table when some of our staff were having trouble understanding some of our community friends. She said, I can sit there and translate and help them understand. So she does. Every Wednesday she's there. She gets a box of food for her and her son. Both of them do more work than what we just asked them to come and do. And so they're building relationships with us. We're building relationships with them. And so it's layering over the two communities. We have people then on the more personal side who, as you know, even though it's the church that volunteers there, you can't discuss prayer with anyone as a staff member. You can't bring up politics. You can't bring up anything when you're representing Community Services League. But if they ask us, we can engage in a full conversation on anything not anything they want to talk. We don't go politics at all, do we? She experienced that with me last week. But extra help, prayers, soul searching happens all the time. We have people who come in and ask if we can close the pantry door, separating them from the library so that all of the volunteers, of the staff that works there can gather around them and say a prayer. And we do. You picked a perfect scripture for my lead in because that's what we do every Wednesday. They will ask for prayer because they made it to the top of the list for an organ transplant, or they found out that their SNAP benefits were going up a little bit. Now that doesn't happen very much, but this person who could need to have that, and they're excited and they want to have a joyous prayer about it. Or someone was just taken to jail and can we please just pray over the family? They will share their life stories. They will share their family stories because they've learned that my staff, it's paramount that we receive every person that comes into that food pantry as a human being, not someone who's lesser than, but someone who's just having hard times, struggling, and they're validated and they're respected. And so they've learned this about us. And so they've learned to trust us. So then they share. They've even started sharing with library staff, and the library staff that you have in place there just reciprocates beautifully. And so what we have is people coming into your library at that branch feeling safe, feeling heard, feeling respected, feeling sometimes a few of them like they actually own the place because they'll walk around and, demand a few things. But that's okay, because what this has done, what this partnership has done, has created this little oasis in that area of the Susquehanna neighborhoods that is somewhere that people just want to come and hang out. Not only to get the foods they need and the supplies they need, but to be with each other. There are conversations, pockets of conversations going on everywhere. People are building friendships with each other when they come to get these resources.
I just like to say, if you come to hang out, that's cool, but don't get in their way, because that is like a well-oiled machine. I mean, like, the work does not stop every time I visit, and everybody has a smile on their face.
Yeah.
And the one gentleman that you mentioned, who was a recipient and then became a volunteer, I met him, it's just a wonderful individual. It's very evident, the transformative work that you're doing there. And just to bring it back to my library business here, when we talk about under-resourced communities, Farview falls into one of those category. They're doing great work. It's very efficient. Like Tammy says, they serve a great number of people. Roughly 50% of our walk-in traffic comes on that day between those 4 hours. But you'll see it's a very small area where storage is, efficient use of space, to say the least. Some storage is outside. But I think we can do better as an organization. And that's kind of the work we're doing this year, figure out how we can serve that community better. And we want to thank you for coming and sharing a little bit about your story. Now, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. When I first came on this board, probably 5 years ago, that was the first place I visited, was Farview. And you guys were just starting to kind of get rolling, but man, I'm telling you, I was so impacted just by walking in there. So I want to commend you to see where you're at now. Okay. And so what a beautiful picture of the way the Lord loves people, and you're doing it. You're loving on people, you're caring for people. That's what the Philippians 2 passage is all about. And so I just say thank you for all of us, but I love that location. And so thank you so much for leading the way.
Thanks for giving me time to share. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Tammy, just so you know, I think you might be the first that actually got applause. Yeah.
I'll take that back to my staff. They'll be excited about it.
There's no obligation to stick around for the rest of this. But I do appreciate you coming and all the work that you do, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Well, and I will put a plug in for extra space and storage as I leave.
Yeah.
We have, in that small space, we have managed to just get everything in every nook and cranny that we can. And fortunately, my husband is a retired assistant fire chief for Independence. So he comes and corrects me when I've got an area blocked or airflow or whatever. Yes. So but we have currently 4 freezers and 2 refrigerators in that small space. And we still have 3 more freezers and 2 refrigerators at our congregation, which is just 3 blocks down. We need that many appliances to hold the food that commodities will give us so that we can feed those people. So just to run in your ear that. Is it? So our space is about half the size of this room. And we managed to have, I'm still going, I'm sorry. We managed to have 4 folding tables down the middle. We put all the boxes on there. 4 people work around those tables, pulling food from shelves. We have the meat corner up here and the frozen goods where they put that together. We have the table to greet here, and then we have administration out front that does all the signing. So just throw that in as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh,
All
and
right.
anybody can stop by any Wednesday you want.
Yeah.
Just pop in and love. I think that'd be a fun board out. Yeah.
Yeah, if you need to move, it's worth going. All right, so next up, we have BNIM. This is the company that we've engaged to help us through the third goal, which is the feasibility of either renovating, rebuilding, or relocating our headquarters facility. I won't really do much about your background because I know that's included in your presentation, but today we have James, Jeremy, and Janelle, 3 J's. So I'm gonna hand it over to you guys and let you give your spiel and everybody to us. All right.
Oh, you don't let me go by myself?
It's not far, he's only like.
That, by the way, that's a tough act to follow. We'll do our best, so. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm James Pfeiffer. I'm an architect and principal of BNIM. And on behalf of my colleagues, we're very honored to be with you this evening and tell you a little bit about what we've been engaged to do. I think as Aaron and his team will attest to, we're really inspired by you all and your mission and what you do each and every day. And so we start most of our meetings, if not all of them, with what's on the screen, really leaning into your mission, which I think it's worth just, again, repeating. It's really about enriching our citizens, communities through expanding access to innovation, information, ideas, and inspiration. Certainly heard that in Tammy's story. There's countless other stories that we've both experienced and heard in our short time working together with you all on this effort. And then of course your vision, which is to provide the very, very best library experience, not just in this area, but in North America, so pretty high aspirations and high vision overall. Okay, so yeah, as it relates to a purpose and mission, what's on the screen is our core purpose, which is at BNIM, which is the company that we work for here in Kansas City. And we design and deliver beautiful, integrated environments to inspire change and enhance the human condition. And that last part is the part I really want to focus on. It's really, for us, it's about inspiring change, that transformation that Aaron spoke to earlier, and really putting people at the center of what we do each and every day. And with that, we really see a great alignment between what we do each and every day and what you all do each and every day. And how we kind of measure that at the end of the day is in part through a number of questions that we ask ourselves in our process. We're an architecture and design firm, and ultimately it's about helping to partner to make people better, helping organizations be better at what they do, creating outcomes that ultimately, at the end of the day, provide a lot of value for you all. So we just want to focus on a couple of these outcomes. One of them was, how do we, through our work, maximize value and minimize waste for you all? Another one is, how does our work elevate your mission and help you all be more effective, right? It's really simple questions, but if we really put them at the center of what we do, we feel like we can really make some positive impact through our work. So 3 characters on the screen there. I've already introduced myself. Janelle Rock is with us this evening, and you're going to hear from her in just a second. Really our lead programmer and director of interiors at BNIM. So really leaning into all of the intricacies of how you use your space. How is the space efficient, as Tammy was illustrating in her example, really leaning into those things and getting to the bottom of all of that. So she's going to tell you a little bit more about that here in a second. And then Jeremy Cam, who's kind of the glue in the operation, really making sure that we're delivering on time, on budget, and really, again, making sure we're organized and really serving you in the best way possible, right? So, yeah, next slide. So Aaron kind of started to allude to this a little bit in his introduction, but there are some objectives that we're really leaning into. And again, we're going to show you we're really at the outset of this process. We have a long way to go with you all here this year. But we want to kind of highlight a few of these things with you. So we started the process and have really enjoyed collaborating with your staff to understand how you work now. And maybe more importantly, how you want to work in the future, right? So thinking beyond the thing that you see right in front of you to the thing that you really aspire to be and to do. We're evaluating your assets, including this building and liabilities and the collection of buildings at the headquarters site. We're considering a range of scenarios, including this current building, potentially leased space or new constructed space. So all of those options are sort of on the table at this point. Again, a range of alternative locations, including the one that we're currently sitting and standing in, and possibilities elsewhere within the district. And then understanding the sort of the costs, both the short-term costs and the long-term costs of each of these alternatives that we're going to be talking about. And then finally, seeking solutions that really align again with your mission and vision as an organization. So with that, I'm going to invite my colleague Janelle
Are you gonna
to
stay
come
up there?
forward.
Are you gonna stay up here with me?
I can. I might sit now, but she's gonna walk through
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff.
Hi, everyone. Okay, can everybody see? I feel like I'm like kind of in the way of the screen, but as mentioned, this is a feasibility study. This is the thinking about what could happen and evaluating all the options that could happen. So we're not designing anything quite yet. We're not building anything quite yet. We're not sending anything out on the street. We are really looking at this programming and scenario development, which is highlighted here at the front portion of where we are. So we are here. Dave, you can see that we have a long way to go before we have some scenarios evaluated. Those scenarios could be about renovation of this headquarters. It could be building new. It could be leasing space or a combination of those things. And we have a few deliverables along the way, and hopefully we'll meet with you again before this process is complete. At the end of that, we hope to have a few scenarios that we would like to take to the next level, price out, and really start to evaluate them a little bit further. We expect that to happen probably mid to late October, and then from there we'll have a final deliverable report the third week in November with our recommendations and all the background that comes with it. So speaking of background, next slide. So we started this process with the visioning and programming process. The visioning part was really to talk about what your vision is for the headquarters, how you're working now, how you want to work. And we started this with a questionnaire to every single employee who works here at MCPL, and it was called A Day in the Life. And we asked them to describe what they do in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. We asked them to point out a highlight and a low light of their day. And we had a great response rate. I think our response rate was somewhere in the 70 to 75% range, which is fantastic. Bar none, everyone, the highlight of the day was getting to work, seeing their coworkers, and interacting with them. Lowlights of the day seem to be lack of access to natural light, lack of collaboration space, and the inability to see their coworkers throughout the day. That's kind of a broad brushstroke of what we heard from the group. In addition to that, we engaged the core group, many of whom are here, Brian, Jen, I think I saw Jennifer, Richie, around the corner, Susan, and of course, Aaron. We engaged the core group in an activity that was really about understanding how departments interact with each other, what the flow of work is coming into the building, and which departments work closely together. So next slide, let's see a little, this is really cute. This is sort of like a little collage of how it all came together. It's not necessarily regurgitating how you're working now, but what is the best way to work in the future? And we divided that into, public access. Now, some of that is aspirational. If your headquarters has more of a front door approach and is more community facing, what departments belong kind of at that front door, a public customer, and then the employee as customer or your departments as your customer, sort of your interworkings, and then the physical branch services is that final triangle there. So that was a fun activity. I think we learned a lot about how you work together and how you want to work in the future. Then the next slide. So in addition to that, sort of talking about these aspirational ideas and understanding the qualitative things about what you want to get out of a renovation or a move or a new build, we evaluated your existing space. So this is an evaluation of the existing headquarters building by department. And what we found in general was that there's a lot of inefficient use of space. And there's a lot of ways I think that we could, maybe take a look at maximizing efficiency while also improving human health along the way. Next slide. We also evaluated the workshed, the facilities workshed up here, about 8,000 square feet, and then the square building, the warehouse space in addition to that. All told, we have about 50,900 and some change for this building gross square footage, 8,000 for the workshed, and then another 9,800 for the warehouse. Next slide. And so what that means is that you have a little over 68,000 gross square feet total on this property for work, storage, space, delivery services, kind of all in. And when we take a look at that, this building was built as a warehouse, and so it functions pretty well as a warehouse, not so much as office space. And so when we take a look at where we are with delivery services and those things tied to delivery services, we're about kind of half and half with just this building. If you add on the facilities and the workshed, that kind of pushes us over level between dot type sort of service delivery functions and office functions. So you can kind of see how all that plays out. There are very few shared office functions. That's one of the things that we heard in the report, that there was just not a lot of meeting space. The meeting spaces tended to be really giant or really small. And so that was one of the things that we have continued to hear as we have done additional departmental programming meetings. I've spent a couple of days out here with the different departments, walking through each of their spaces, understanding in detail how things come into the facility, how they're processed, and how each department works. So that's where we are. We don't have conclusions yet. We are still in the information gathering stage, and I think we're starting to formulate some common themes, and we'll very soon have a program to deliver to MCPL so that we can start to look for spaces that could potentially fit the bill and start to evaluate what some of those spaces could yield.
So as Janelle said, we've been doing a lot of listening so far, and a lot of looking, and that as we've heard with the various departments and understanding the people aspect of it, we've also been taking a look at the physical assets, the various buildings on this piece of land. How are they functioning? Do they have 10 years of life left in them, or 50 years? And so we have gone through and done an assessment of each of the facilities, the warehouse, the facilities building, the headquarters, and the stone house. Next slide. Looking at this one a little bit more closely, this is a 3D scan that was done some time ago, but it starts to illustrate a few of the problems that Janelle had noted with this existing space, it's sort of this combination of extremely dense areas and then inefficiently used areas. It's a floor plate that is distant to exterior walls, so distant to a lot of daylight. And it has grown organically over time. To the library's credit, you have solved problems along the way with the means that you had to solve them. And if a new room needed to be made out of a closet, that's what happened. And that's been happening incrementally over years. So the results in a building that is functioning in its best possible way. A maintenance analysis was done on all of MCPL's facilities. It's a 1,200-page report. I recommend it. Particularly the section that deals, it's good. I mean, it's dense with information. Volume 2 contains an evaluation of orders. And I think that the assessment that we are doing now is building on that maintenance analysis report rather than replacing it. So I think the main difference is that that analysis was taking a look at these buildings as if we were very happy with them. And what we needed to do was simply maintain them. Well, we're sort of taking that and saying also, maybe we're not so happy with them. And what are some of the opportunities that we can start to think about for if we're going to replace systems, if we're going to replace things, what is a bigger picture way that we might go about doing that? So next slide. Initial findings, and this kind of covers some of the things that Janelle said and some of the things that I have said so far. So I mentioned that the building has changed organically over time. It's a series of additions and things. The building systems in particular aren't keeping pace. So you'll find rooms that are very, very hot, rooms at the same time of day on the same day are very, very cold. And that is something that would need to be corrected kind of holistically rather than incrementally. I want to give a shout out to MCPL facilities who have done a really remarkable job of keeping these buildings maintained over the years. You never know the building is as old as it is. The example I use is we were up on the roof with Aaron and Brian a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the trees. There are a lot of trees on the south side of the building, big oaks. And the roof was fairly spotless, well taken care of. I think there was a testament or kind of an outward sign of the care that they have for these facilities. So then the organization of interior spaces doesn't support the operation of DPL in the best possible way. It can be more efficient. There could be better adjacencies. So then the physical environment, which Janelle mentioned, it includes things like access to daylight, thermal comfort, ventilation. There's particular areas or operations that take place that require better than normal ventilation to be healthy. Materials, effective lighting, all of it can contribute to the well-being of the MCPL staff here. And then finally, the experience of these buildings as they currently stand may be limited to MCPL and its ability to hire the best people and attract the best talent to grow in the way they want to. So we mentioned earlier that we are evaluating as many scenarios as we can pick up that might happen for the world headquarters. But the main question is stay or go. Do you stay here? Do you double down on this place, this side, or do you start looking elsewhere? If you stay, it comes in a few different categories or level of intervention. Light renovation is sort of emblematic of what's been done over the years, which is with a little project over here, and then a little addition over here, and a little thing over there. It would potentially be a situation where the staff has to sort of square dance around the work that's being done. And at the end of the day, it may not be something that you all are happy with. Nevertheless, it's an option, it's on the spectrum. A heavy renovation or a renovation of campus as a whole is a way of remaining here and reusing these buildings. What it might mean is a move out. So all the staff and the operations and the IT, the brains of the system need to go somewhere else temporarily and then move back in. So that's all done. When it comes to how you treat the campus, like Janelle was saying, there's bifurcations building of different people doing fairly different activities, the administrative things and the delivery service kind of things. So there's an option where everyone stays, and maybe there's an option where certain people stay and certain functions stay here and others move to a different location. In the go side of the equation, we mentioned leasing, lease a space. You could buy a building and do a TI, which stands for tenant improvement, which is redo the interior to meet your needs, or build new. And if you build new, you have some choices. Do you build on new land that you just bought? Do you build on land that MCPL already owns, which there's a fair amount of that over the coast of the district? Or do you use this land? That's kind of the final one, and replace these buildings with new buildings. That's the spectrum of options we're looking at. And then as far as deliverables go, we're not to the point of making recommendations. We're to the point of it presenting you all with the facts about all the options that are relevant. And that consists of a program which talks about sizes of things. It includes the facility conditions assessment report, information about cost, information about possible layouts of new spaces and other places, and a financial analysis, which is about cost of ownership. How are you going to pay for it and for how long? So, I think that is the last slide.
We have Alice Katz on the call,
Yes.
From DMC. Alice, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I just want you to explain just in general, like, the method that we came up with on how you would even get ballpark figures from the cost of any of these options. I think the board would like to hear that.
Yeah, what we're going to do is once we have these programs, we've asked BNIM to create some hypothetical scenarios of what we would need if we renovated a building, if like Jeremy said, whether we renovated a building or bought new or built new, into those different scenarios. And then we're going to utilize J.E. Dunn, who's been the library's partner on construction for a lot of the various branches that you've been doing over the years, to help us then price these different variable options so we can start looking at creating what we call a pro forma with pros and cons of these various options that you could then consider. And the idea here is everything is hypothetical. We're not looking to try to steer anybody in any single direction, but hopefully when we come back to the board later towards the end of this year, perhaps even beginning of next year, that hopefully staff will be making recommendations to the board about what the best option might be based on these analysis that we're going to do. And we have to look into factors about, how much is it going to cost to build? What's the payback for doing that? What if we renovated and then you had to move out? There's a cost for moving out and moving back in. Things like that we're all going to consider in these various scenarios. We have the benefit of having BNIM have an internal real estate person in their staff, which allows us to mitigate the need to bring on a broker right now. And we really don't want to be using brokers right now because they kind of steer you in different directions that we don't necessarily want to go, especially if we're going to consider MCPL land as an option for either building new or renovating an existing building that you might have on one of your properties. So that's kind of the scenario that we're looking at right now. We're like BNIM said, we're really in the beginning stages of this. We've got a couple months still to go of a lot of heavy lifting to do this analysis and then report back to you.
Thanks, Ellis. I'll turn it over to you guys if you have any questions. That was a great presentation. Thank you all for putting it together.
My only question is kind of selfish is for the boardroom, because as you can see, seating is often limited. Sometimes we have more people than what we have. We like that. We have extra people. And then also that, you know, wherever you speak, you have your back to the camera. I attend online mostly. And so it's very difficult to see. And so just making sure, I mean, we do use this monthly. And it is a very important thing that's recorded, and I would ask that you would consider some of the aesthetics of this room.
Oh, we will. We interviewed here, and I have to say that we sent somebody out to take photos of the room because we were confused about how it was going to be set up and confused about how we were going to present. So we had someone from our office come out and take photographs so that we knew what to expect. And it is a very tricky room. So that's why I say we will definitely consider that for the new.
I've been on the board long enough for when we had the old boardroom way back with the dim lighting. So this has been a great improvement. I think your analysis, your preliminary analysis is dead on. It's a building that has morphed and adapted. As staff has grown, as things have changed, that we really need to take a good look at it, because we could look at it and say, oh yeah, another building, but we need to recognize that how the core of the library operates affects all of the libraries. And if things aren't efficient here, it's going to affect everything down the road. So I'm glad that we're taking a look at it. The comments, as I'm looking at your screen under scenarios for consideration, and then you have all the pretty colored circles, and some of those, I think if I'm reading this correctly, one of them is the thought that maybe some stay here with renovation, some operations could go to another, and so I commend you for the task that you have in hand, because it seems like everything is sort of out there on the table, and I could see maybe a scenario where maybe it makes sense to use part of the building or campus, but relocate others permanently, and I don't know how you set that out, but looking forward to it, though, we're switching here outside of it.
Yes.
My only concern is, yeah, I can see we definitely need, you know, to do something improvement with this building, but is just considering, you know, the area and do we, I think we need to keep in mind not overbuilding, you know, like building this great building in an area that wouldn't support it. Did we ever have to sell it or something? So I guess my question, you know, to you, Aaron, are we looking at other possible locations?
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I wanted to remain as neutral as possible. I mean, when we engaged BNIM, they're like, well, you know, do you have a hunch or preference? And I said, I mean, yeah, I mean, like there's things that I think about, but it's premature to make a call on whether to stay or to go. You want to see all the options that you have to see how it aids the organization, benefits the staff, and decide whether or not it makes financial sense to divide into two or to stay together. There's arguments in my mind right now, arguments on both sides, you know, both sides of that argument. I can see it. So to answer your question, we're considering everything, right? And then seeing what makes the most sense. And these are the options that we'll present to the board after the first year. I hear you.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is that for a total overhaul, to me, thinking real estate wise, I don't know if this area would support it, you know, the where this building is.
Sure.
You know, you don't want to overbuild you don't want to be the $2 million house next to the $10,000 houses.
Yeah.
So, you know, not to overbuild for the area. You know, so but if you think, you know, what's needed is just little tweaks to this building, then that's a different.
Right, so the way the timeline works is that around the midpoint, we'll give an update to the building committee, which will have more information to share at that time, and then we'll bring back kind of recommendations to the board at the end of this process. And then together we can begin talking about what makes the most sense. I'm optimistic. I'm happy we're doing this work. Just as a reminder to everyone here, a little over a fifth of our full-time staff work in this building. And they really drive business. I mean, you could liken it to a heart pushing blood out through the arteries of our system. I think the quality of their work and their ability to be creative and collaborating with each other is very important. In regards to the future of the library system, and that's why we're having this conversation. So thank you. Do appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions?
Just a comment, I don't know, so you mentioned it earlier. The point made about some parts of the building may be overly warm and other parts overly cool. I'm freezing right now.
Me too.
So I don't know if that's just done to make us leave early or what, but it must be hot somewhere else in this facility, but it's I'm glad that's what you're doing.
Amen.
That's why I wore a sweater.
All right.
Comment, if I may, and yeah, so, really happy that, we're engaging in all of this, that you guys are, you know, taking this on, and that, we're gonna be able to look into some things we haven't looked into before, which I think is really necessary, as Joycelyn said and others have said. And, yeah, I love buildings, and I was on the building committee for a long time, and I like gazing into all those things. And so I'm really looking forward to, this is a necessary step that's been needed for quite some time. So thank you, Aaron, for, you know, really getting the ball rolling on this, in this area. So thank you.
All right. So thank you. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to, but I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Yes, thank you all.
Thank you.
That could be my
So. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So as I understand, there's no visitors' comments. Is that correct, Teresa? Okay. And so the board committee reports will move on, and I don't think there's a building committee.
No, we're normally it's scheduled 2 days from now, but we obviously don't have any projects right now to talk about. So there is not a building committee this Thursday.
Okay, so finance and audit committee, I guess there's no report there. Okay. Fundraising Development Committee, we have a report there, Marcy?
Do have some things. Get your pencil and paper out if you want to take a few notes of some dates and opportunities coming up. As always, I want to thank Diana, who shares the information with me and make sure I've got everything straight. The Lit Up Festival is coming, and the VIP reception and creative contest awards are Friday, September 20th. From 6 to 8 p.m. at Woodneath. All the board members, families are invited. You're invited to attend. There's no cost, but please do RSVP the development so they know that you're coming. The 24 Legacy Luncheon is Friday, October 11th, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the conference center at the MGC. So it's again at the junior. The tickets are required for purchase for that. So. And please let them know if you are wanting to attend. There are table sponsorships available. Ask you to RSVP.
October what?
October 11th, 11:30 a.m. 1:30. Wonderful event last year there. Looking forward to that again. And then a couple of other notes. So I would just say the foundation board met We're having some ongoing conversations about long-term purpose and mission, so forth, and so there's conversations about that, about how to proceed. Look for us to share more information as that sort of evolves. And then lastly, I wanted to make a note that we've had a donation, a commitment of a $10,000 gift to match the MCPL Foundation Fall Mail Appeal. We have a couple in the audience to thank for this offer of a match. Brad and Carla Hughes, who also have been very generous. I want us to always remember to be thankful and grateful to them. They are such wonderful supporters of us. They've also made a $5,000 gift to the Reading Rocket team to help fulfill their wish lists. I know that I was looking over at them as they were hearing about the Reading Rocket being participating with Farview and knowing just, the joy that program brings to our communities. On a side note, I understand also that Reading Rocket has found a place to relocate from the Community Services League at Blendwell Center up on the square. We're looking forward to that when we got soon, and more families being served. And then lastly, they've committed to a $1,000 scholarship at the Legacy Luncheon. So we thank you very, very much for your support. Appreciate that you're here and so interested in some of that. That's what I had to share.
Thank you, Marcy. Appreciate your report. And Diana, thank you. Any questions or anything? Okay. Personnel Committee.
Personnel committee has not met.
Okay.
This is also
Thank you. And Technology Committee.
has not met.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the financial reports and I will turn that over to Jim.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Flip to the next slide. The fiscal year for the library is July to June, so this is the first month of our new fiscal year. You'll note on this first slide that we have here, looking just at our property taxes collected, there's a stagger every other year, and this is just based on collections. So this is an up year for collections compared to last year. We've collected $376,000 property taxes. They're all delinquent. The current taxes won't be collected until December. And compared to last year, it was around $232,000. And so that explains a little bit of what you'll see on the in a couple of slides when we talk about revenue to the general fund. But moving on to the next slide, this is a look at just our cash. This slide hopefully looks familiar to you. We're just continuing from what we shared last year. So that bottom line that is starting to be purple, that's where the actuals will be month by month. The yellow is our current projection of cash for the year. And you'll note that we started the year or ended July, excuse me, with 11.1 million in cash. You'll note that as we do every year, we spend the cash balance down until we get our next disbursement of taxes. In December, we're projecting right now that we'll go negative in cash in November. We believe we're going to need to borrow around $6 million this year. Last year, we needed to borrow $3 million. It all primarily stems around some investments that were renewed and probably shouldn't have been, or at least the laddering should have been different. In the time that I've been here, I've worked with our investment advisors at the bank. Every couple of months, we run an analysis to see if the investments that we're holding would be more advantageous to the library to sell short, essentially take that cash loss, but then not have to borrow money. Over the entirety of last year, we borrowed $3 million. It cost us roughly $30,000. If we were to sell these investments early, we would have lost over $100,000. So it obviously made more sense to borrow money, pay the interest. We're still in that position, even with the investment market starting to turn in our local economy. We still stand to lose close to $75,000, $80,000 if we were to sell these short. So staff is once again recommending that we extend a line of credit through our bank We believe it will need to be around 6 million instead of 3 million. With current interest rates, we think we'll pay probably closer to 75,000 instead of 30,000. But when we sell these investments at maturity, we'll recoup that money. So that is all I have to report on cash, unless anybody has any questions. We're very early in the year, so it's more projection than reality at this point. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. This is looking just at the general fund. As I stated earlier, the majority of our revenue won't come until December, so we're pretty much living on cash in the general fund. That being said, the general fund has collected around $520,000, just slightly over what our budget projection was. And our expenditures is just over $6 million, which is about 96% of what our projected expenditures were. So the operating deficit for the first month of our fiscal year is right at $5.5 million. Moving on to the next slide. This one is a little more complicated. The short answer is timing issues. But you'll see that the capital project fund has collected around $190,000. This is pretty much just interest earned on those investments. And we actually have negative expenditures at this point in time. This is why I say it's more of a timing issue. Without going too deep into the woods, under generally accepted accounting principles and governmental funds, we're required to make a projection of what we think the expenses will be in the current fiscal period, but we won't actually know until the future fiscal period. So it's an estimate. Our estimate was roughly $140,000 off. So for the first month, the credit is more than the debit. So it's showing a negative now. It will eventually wash out by the time we get to the end of the year. It's more of a timing issue and a fancy accounting issue that is an actual cash issue or any cause for concern. Moving on to the last slide, this is looking at the healthcare fund. Again, our revenues here are fairly static because the majority of them come from the library. Of course, our employees kick in their share and retirees kick in their share. But the majority of the revenues come from the library to support health insurance for all of the employees that qualify. So our revenues are just over 407,000, right on, pretty much right on target with our budget. And our expenditures are just under 74,000. And as you look at the chart at the bottom, you'll note that a lot of this just has to do with timing issues. So we really haven't had any claims that came in within the calendar month. And that's happened several times throughout the years. It's all just a matter of timing. Since we report on a cash basis, if we haven't actually physically paid the claim by July 31st, it wouldn't show up on this report. But all told, I think everything's going pretty much according to the plan that we laid out in the budget that you all approved. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions for Jeremy on anything? Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Great job. Appreciate the reports and everything. Good, thank you. Any unfinished business? Nope. New business. We have a resolution justifying the intention to restore the levy.
All right. I'm gonna have Jeremy or Sarah, if you could kind of explain the reason why this resolution is on the agenda, why we're required to do this by law. And Jeremy, if you want to chime in on really what it means, feel free to do so. So Sarah?
Yeah, I can start.
Be kind of prepared, so.
Okay, all right.
So when the board made the decision 2 years ago to take a voluntary reduction, that triggered a process in state law that we're now walking through. As we discussed, I think for the first time back in March, presented a budget that supported a fully restored levy. There's a mechanism that we have to do statutorily to basically let the public know of the intent. So the resolution tonight is not locking you into a rate, just like it didn't lock you into a rate when we talked about the budget. It's just that next iteration in this process that's required under state law. So what the state law requires is that if an organization determines that they want to do a voluntary reduction, before they can restore that voluntary reduction, they basically have to explain why they believe they need to restore the levy, excuse me. So in this resolution, I believe the fourth whereas, we covered just the budget highlights, if you will, funding and operating 34 locations, cash funding capital maintenance items rather than borrowing money for them, and then implementing several new initiatives that you all approved in the Aaron's goals, one of which you talked about tonight, enhancing under-resourced communities. Another one we talked about tonight, which is something about this building. You don't necessarily know what yet, but we know we need funds to start that process. So for all of those reasons, we need to restore the levy. The law basically requires that you all pass a resolution that's just letting the public know that that's your intent and those are the reasons why. And so this resolution's been crafted to answer all of those questions. The actual levy process will occur just like it did last year, and just like I'm sure it's done in every year prior. At the next meeting, we'll have the final assessed values for all three counties. We'll do the math and we'll present to you what that levy needs to be based on the actual assessed valuation certified by the county.
Thank you.
I would like to move to approve the resolution 24005, restoration of the levy to the applicable ad valorem tax rate seal. Second.
Second. We have a second. Yeah. So we need to take a vote, correct?
No discussion.
Discussion. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. Teresa, would you?
Trustee Burgo. Yes. Trustee Greg. Trustee Gregg.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Maggio.
Yes.
Trustee Lemunian.
Yes.
Trustee Pandolfi.
Aye.
Trustee Thieves.
Yes.
Trustee Wheezy.
No,
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Motion carries. Move on to trustees' comments. Are there any trustees' comments at this time?
Sorry.
Yes, Ron.
Announcements. The announcements first.
Oh, announcements. Oh. Okay.
All right, so no, I think I got it. Okay. The driving test. September 20th, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, at 6 p.m. There's a lit up VIP reception in Whitney. September 23rd is the actual lit up festival. And it's going to be in Whitney Library Center. That's a wonderful event. Do a great job producing.
You should let her, she's close to.
Okay, is that 24th?
Yes.
Okay, September 24th. That's Audrey Tang. And that's a virtual event as part of our Facing the Future. The more and more I read about this woman, I have to highly recommend it. It's also a strong advocate for homeschooling. I think she was homeschooled herself. Just a brilliant mind, and it's just done wonders in the country of Taiwan. So again, that's on the 24th. On the 25th is the MLA conference, and I believe that's in Kansas City, am I right?
It is.
Yeah, that's the 25th to the 27th. October 2nd, again, we have Kyle Chaka. He's an in-person, it will be an in-person event in our Whitney Auditorium. That's, I think, our final It is. Event in the Facing the Future series. Do you have anything to add about Kyle?
He's the author of Filter World, and he's a contributor to the New Yorker for digital and social media trends. So we're really looking forward to having him. So
Great.
Yep.
And so we get close to that date, I'll share more information there. And then October 11th is the Legacy Luncheon at the Midwest Genealogy Center. So that concludes my announcements. So thanks for paying attention to.
Okay, trustees' comments. This. Ron?
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge and commend everybody who's associated with the Reading Rocket. There was a gathering surrounding the rocket at Zona Rosa roughly a month ago. And just to see the young kids who are all around preschool, elementary school age roughly, just to see their encounter with books and everything is just so uplifting. And a second comment, I think what I find just so incredibly wonderful about the efforts that our executives are doing in their collaborative efforts with other governmental entities. I think we had a great example about that tonight, working with the school district and charitable organizations. I have Fairview. And another one is on page 5 of our handout, working with veterans to ensure that they can get the maximum VA services. I think an absolutely admirable effort. Now, contrary to every appearances of my away medicals here, we actually were Marines in Vietnam together. And I think we can attest to the fact that especially now, after the Gulf effort with multiple deployments, there are many people who are just, so weary and burned out, and yet the VA has just incredibly good services, but how do you get them there? And I think the effort that the library is doing to connect with these younger vets and the VA and the hospital, the whole mental health and behavioral services. Yeah, I mean, I must sound corny, but I really believe it's God's work that, you guys are doing. I'm done.
Any other comments?
Just a quick one. I had the opportunity to attend the James Patterson event, and just want to say what an incredible event that was. Susan, you did a great job and one great sport.
Very good sport.
Great sport at the hands of these two gentlemen who were quite the comedians. The best thing out, and I had a double take as they came out and announced themselves about 10 minutes early as the opening act. And I looked at the gentleman and thought, I'm sure that's James Patterson. They saw in laughter the whole evening, but just commend the staff on the absolute quality of bringing in these authors of such caliber to enlighten and entertain us at the same time. And just I'm very thankful that we have the facilities placed to host such wonderful events.
I did have someone come up afterwards and ask me if I was part of the comedy act that they did, and I went, no. I just went along with that one.
Shall I ask you to pronounce his last name?
It's big. And I knew that, but it was a lot of fun. I just played along. It was good.
Very good.
I would like to say, I think it would be really neat to have the board volunteer for the food pantry together, just as if we had a day that we could do that. I think it's a really great opportunity that we could see the work that we do in action and help a little bit. So
Love to see it, Laura. I think we may mess things up.
that's what I was wondering. That's what I was like, I'd like to help it. Maybe free or after cleanup. We could do cleanup.
Yeah. I would add to that, I really love that idea. If you've never served in a food pantry, I've served in a bunch of them all across KC and up in Platte City. That's powerful. I mean, you really get down into the place where people live who have nothing, and it's actually such a blessing just to be part of it. It's hard to describe it unless you've actually engaged in it. And so I would encourage that if we can pull that off, I think it would be great. And I'd just go to clean the place up, but just to be able to serve people.
I like that idea.
Not get in their way, but just, I would encourage us all, I think we should do it,
I'm gonna reach out and see what type of a day that they could have us.
Okay,
All right.
yeah,
We'll do it.
that'd be great.
That's great.
Any other comments? It's really been a joy to be here, just to hear everybody and just to receive all what's happening here. And just appears to me that around this table right here, that we're developing a really close bond with one another, a collaboration with one another, and a love for one another that really transcends all the business stuff and everything else. So let's personally, we need to keep working on that. So, yeah, so thank you all. Do I hear a motion to adjourn meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
right. The adjournment has been
Oh.
me, I, everybody.